This is Reality Dispatch, written by Jim Mins.
The revolver chamber hammered as the trigger clicked to the next and the next and the next. Until finally, the hammer caught wind of a bullet and ignited the powder, launching the projectile into the brain of the suspecting contender. His fear and stress were the final emotions he was to experience in his lifetime. Don dropped to the floor and was none the wiser as his conscience evaporated as quickly as it had arrived on the day of his birth. Today was the day of his death, and he would never know it. That was for the best. Stephanie swiveled back from her chair. She felt no emotion at having systematically killed off her protagonist in a game of Russian roulette. She had spent more time with him than with any other man in her 38 years. He had made her bank account thick with comfort. Thanks to him, she had the ability to travel the world in style, adorned in any outfit she desired, visiting any location she could access. He had cemented her name and reputation into the annals of great writers. Now he lay dead in a pool of his own blood, from a self-inflicted gunshot wound, from a game that she made him play. She did not mourn his loss when she ventured into the kitchen to make herself a cup of coffee. She opened the brandy nearby, dormant since before the pandemic, and added a few drops to give the drink a hint of sass. She felt nothing. She worried that her lack of empathy for this man who had given her everything might be a diagnosis of some indeterminate mental incapacity. Because she felt nothing, she wanted to feel something. She hoped the booze would provide the trick. She took one sip of the aggravated beverage and spat the disgusting contents into the nearby sink, washing away the remnants so as not to smell a whiff of the sick-inducing odor. You can bring him back to life at any stage. She reminded herself, she was his god. She had control over every inch of his existence. He had not been able to have a bowel movement or a single night's sleep in the decades since her subconscious invented him. Yet, if she wanted, she could give him all of those experiences. All she had to do was venture back to the word processor and make it happen. But what would be the point? She asked herself. His existence was for the sole benefit of a paying clientele. No one wanted to read about the hero of the Don's Quest series sitting on a toilet seat in a public bathroom taking a shit. She would be the only one privy to him sitting on porcelain, removing excrement from his backside for the very first time, and having him describe that experience to her through the written word on the keyboard. If no one else was around to see it, was it worth going through? If a tree falls in the woods and no one is around? Why don't you bring him back and ask him? Stephanie sat back at her empty desk and looked at the blank page, the cursor blinking in anticipation of her next encounter. The previous document had been saved. The book was only 2/3 complete, and she didn't know where it would venture now that Don Savon was dead. She needed to know what he thought of all of this, so she began to type. "Don, are you there?" she asked the blank page. She looked on and waited. She held her fingers over the keyboard, and after a moment, they began to type. "I'm here, Stephanie," they began. "How are you?" She was pleased to hear from him after their dramatic morning. "I'm good. Better than you, anyway." She laughed as she wrote. "Why?" he asked. "Well, after your encounter with Reznikov and his henchmen," she reminded him. "What about it?" She paused. He didn't know what had happened. Either that, or he had deliberately blocked it out. Or perhaps his resurrection through her words had given him a clean slate, a fresh rebirth, untainted by the nastiness of the world that preceded it. Like a respawn in a video game, where the character is oblivious to the horrors that just befell them and lives to engage in another quest, unaware of the danger. She wanted him to know. She wanted to know how he felt. "You're dead," she said. "You blew your brains out with a bullet from a round-chambered pistol whilst playing a game of Russian roulette," she explained. There was a pause. She held her hands over the keys and waited. Eventually, he engaged. "Oh, damn," was all he could muster. Then he continued. "Why did you do that?" She didn't know how to respond. They had never engaged in dialogue before. She just controlled him and his surroundings, page after page, novel after novel. He did what she said, but he had never questioned her motives before. Not until that very moment. "Because it was your time," she wrote. Why don't you just wipe out the chapter and bring me back? She'd thought about the question and how she would begin to answer when she felt her fingers continue to type. He had more to ask. You have that ability. I have more secrets to uncover, more adventures to take, more of the world to see. I need to be around for whatever lies around the corner, he said. He was starting to sound as if he were pleading for his life, she thought. She couldn't quite grasp his tone. For the first time, she felt not in control of it. I can't do that, Don. I need to service the story, and I'm afraid your time in that world has come to an end. I can't just go back and undo all that you've been through, she said. Why not? Because that wouldn't be true to the story. But you can just change the story. No, I can't, she frantically wrote back. I can't change the truth of the story, she wrote forcefully. Well, change your truth, he yelled back. She swiveled her chair away from the computer. She thought about his statement. She remembered Amber Dawn, the love of his life, and the fiery plane crash that had robbed him of her. The knowledge that he had the engagement ring purchased and ready to propose. She wondered why he hadn't mentioned this. Perhaps his priority was his own existence. She found herself venturing back to the keyboard. Why don't you keep me alive in this context? Here. Don't worry about the story. I just want to be around in some capacity so that we can talk and it's just you and me. She raised an eyebrow as she continued to type out his request. This way I can go on. You have to give me that, please. You don't know what it's like here for me. There is meaning in here. There is a degree of self-control here. I have solace and happiness. Please don't take this place away from me, he said as she wrote. She read the words again and again. She didn't know what he was referring to. She wondered where that plea for help had come from and contemplated asking him about it, about the place where his fictional soul was residing. Do I want to get into a dialogue with my fictional character? She asked herself. She reached over to the mouse, highlighted the text, and deleted it with a flick of her thumb on the backspace key. She looked at the empty page and the blinking cursor, waiting in anticipation of the next creation. She wondered where, in the realm of existence, the words that presented themselves with such force, such confidence, had derived. A place she could not understand, fathom, nor explain. Perhaps that place was in control.
For more stories of fact-based fiction, head to jimmins.substack.com.